Smaltz Goodwin Company, Philadelphia, USA. Makers. Ought to have shoes. Have you a pretty foot? You ought to have. No matter how dainty, how large or small your foot may be, this shoe lends grace and elegance. When skirts are raised by reason of rain or wind, there is nothing on earth so sloppy as an ill-looking and bad-fitting shoe. A well-dressed foot is always attractive, whether on the street or in the store, in the home or place of worship, whether you are resting in comfort or pursuing the rounds of pleasure. The auto-have shoe, in its many styles and various shapes, in high and low shoes, gives you absolutely the best, most comfortable, and knobbiest shoes for the money on earth. They wear elegantly and hold their shape. Prices: $3.50 and $4. Ketch and Haas, 815 Hamilton Street, Allentown, Pennsylvania. Pinkerton's Detective Agency. We never sleep. To Agent Matthew Hickman, Central Utah Railway, Spring City, Utah Territory. November 20th, 1884. Matt, it's been quite a puzzle, but I think it's finally beginning to clear up. You'd better sit down because I don't think even you will have seen this coming. Hopefully, what I'm about to tell you will clear up several of your questions regarding Rigby, the stars, and even Lizzie. First of all, you'll never guess who Lottie Strickland's only brother is. He is really her half-brother, and he's none other than the Bright Star's late father, Dr. Lyle Starr, which means the Bright Stars are Miss Lottie's half-nieces. She must be the aunt Captain Rigby took them to live with out in California. I'm sorry it's taken me so long to get his information to you, but there was quite a lot of digging involved. Someone definitely didn't want the truth about Dr. Lyle Starr coming to light. This is what I know so far. Lyle Starr was Elijah Strickland's Miss Lottie's father, her oldest son. His first wife was the well-known heiress Violet Starr of Louisiana. They had one son, Lyle Starr, but unfortunately Violet died in childbirth. As an only child, Violet stood to inherit all her family's fortune upon her father's death. After she died, however, Granddaddy Starr decided he didn't want the family name to die out, so he promised to leave his fortune to Elijah and Violet's son, Lyle, on one condition. Elijah Strickland would have to allow Violet's parents to adopt Lyle outright so he could legally carry on the Starr name. So Lyle went by the surname Starr rather than Strickland. Elijah wasn't a wealthy man and was entirely unaware he would soon make his own inexhaustible fortune out west, so he agreed, thinking it would provide the best future for Lyle. Elijah then moved to California, where he made his fortune, met his second wife, Jeanette Barlow, and had 2 daughters, Charlotte and Elizabeth Strickland. After he and his wife passed, he left his fortune to Charlotte, who used to take care of for herself, her sister, and eventually her 3 nieces, who came to live with them after their parents passed. I've had men check on all the facts, and everything pans out to this point. Then things start to get a little murky, lad. Lyle Starr's death certificate says he was killed in action during Lincoln's War. But since he was a surgeon and not a soldier, I decided to track down the physician who signed the certificate, one Hillebrand Wise, and get the details of Starr's passing. Turns out Dr. Wise was Starr's assistant during the war, and he confirmed my doubts that, as a physician, Starr never saw active duty. Therefore, he couldn't have been killed in action. In fact, the night Starr was said to have died in battle, he was dining with General Lee and several of Lee's senior officers, one of which was none other than our own Captain Jeremiah Rigby. Wise told me a bit more about what happened that night, back at camp after supper. Starr received a letter from his wife informing him that Union soldiers had looted his ancestral estate in Louisiana and then burned it to the ground. For all intents and purposes, Starr was no longer a wealthy plantation owner or beneficiary to his granddaddy's estate. In fact, with all his money wrapped up in running the plantation, he received quite a blow when he realized he was suddenly virtually penniless. With only Wise and Captain Rigby as witnesses to his distress, Starr got utterly soused and began babbling on about how it would all be all right because after the war was over, he, his wife, and 3 little girls, Belladonna, Jessamine, and Azalea, were heading west to hunt for treasure. At first, Wise thought his superior was just out of his mind with all the shock of losing everything. But then Starr pulled out an actual treasure map from among his possessions and began talking about how he'd inherited it from his granddaddy's maternal grandfather, a man descended from conquistadors with the surname de Rivera, who traveled the old Spanish Trail and discovered the fabled city of Tequio, somewhere between the San Francisco Mountains and the Colorado River. Then Starr began laughing, saying his entire estate amounted to loss and 1/10 of the wealth the Spanish treasure was said to contain. Wise told me they found Starr dead in his tent the very next morning. It appeared to be suicide by poisoning, as they found hemlock berries near his body. And Starr was known for his expertise concerning native plants and herbs. It was Captain Rigby, however, who came to Wise after Starr's body was found and convinced him to claim killed in battle as the cause of death rather than suicide on the death certificate, in order to spare Starr's widow more grief. But Wise said the idea of Starr committing suicide never sat well with him, especially since he went back to search through Starr's belongings for the map to send it along as a bit of hope for his grieving widow. When he looked for the map, however, it was nowhere to be found. It wasn't until several years after the war, when Wise read in the paper about Rigby buying shares in the Horn silver mine, that he began to suspect Captain Rigby might have had something to do with Dr. Starr's death. Now, in light of the above, I've been asking myself these questions since hearing this story. 1. Why would Starr kill himself if he had the possibility of finding such a large hidden fortune out west? 2. And I learned this after doing quite a bit of arm twisting here in Chicago. How is it the berries found near Starr's body were the exact same berries found in the Slumgullion concoction Belladonna Starr allegedly fed Rigby's entire household staff before they died? Is it a coincidence, Maddie? I think not. What if the Starrs just visited Rigby simply to steal back what was rightfully theirs? What if old Captain Rigby poisoned his own staff, framing the Starrs for murder so every lawman, bounty hunter, and private detective from here to Mexico would be on the lookout for the sisters? Furthermore, Miss Lottie believes the same man who killed her half-brother also killed Lizzie. I sent a man to check up on that too. According to MacDonald, Rigby was at the store the very night Lizzie was killed. So the only man both Lizzie and Lyle Starr had in common, as far as I can see, is Captain Jeremiah Rigby. Nobody knows for certain how or with what Lizzie was poisoned, since no substance was found by her body. But you and I both know Lizzie was poisoned by something. What if the reason she went undercover was to try to get the map back from Rigby, to ensure her nieces had what was rightfully their inheritance returned to them? Now, I've tried to dig deeper into Rigby's dealings with MacDonald here in Chicago, but MacDonald has stopped being helpful. His men are hedging us at every turn. However, I am fairly certain that since Rigby owns shares in that mine, he and Gambit are also well acquainted, and I suspect Gambit is in debt to Rigby, not MacDonald. Perhaps MacDonald is just acting as the middleman. Either way, without MacDonald's cooperation, we won't have the Chicago police force on our side. Therefore, we won't be able to pin anything on Rigby. If true justice is ever to be served, you're going to have to find a way to connect Rigby and Gambit with the shady dealings happening at the Horn Silver Mine. Then you're going to have to make sure they stand trial there in Utah, where MacDonald can't influence the jury in their favor. I don't know how this will change your desire to continue tracking the Starrs, but my guess is these ladies will be safest if you're the one who catches them. I haven't had the chance to wire you yet, but Rigby just upped the bounty on their heads and no longer cares if they are caught dead or alive. As far as I'm concerned, this is no longer an outlaw case, but a protection custody case. So take extra care, Maddie. Rigby's got a lot to lose in this, and we already know he isn't above murdering to get what he wants. Yours, Bill. Bill Pinkerton, Pinkerton Detective Agency, 94 Washington Street, Kendall, Block 3, Chicago, Illinois. Continental Union Telegraph Company, Telegram. Sent by GB. Received by AS. Time 4:38 p.m. Date November 28th, 1884. Central Utah Railway Station, Frisco, Utah Territory. To Sheriff Sam Pearson. Sam, CJR may be heading your way. He's an awful powerful fellow who can't be trusted. Bill Pinkerton believes Gambit is in debt to him, most likely in the form of mine shares. Be on your guard. Gambit may resort to desperate measures if you pose a threat to the continued success of the mine. Matt,